That's a life of a fisherman you wouldn't understand. Something you can't feel on dry land. Gotta get your arms way up in a cage and set the hook on smallmouth bass, and then you'll understand. Gotta get your hands on a Shimano reel and a G Loomis rod. I bet you like what you feel. Step on the deck, give it a whirl. Hello, welcome to my world.
What's going on, all you Facebook Live and YouTube Live fishing freaks? Welcome to this episode of On Another Line Live. I am coming to you. I am working on getting JR on, actually, and I just got a text message from him that he will not be on this evening. He has some doctor things to do, which is more important. Saving people's lives. Has a family member that's in need of some cardiology care, so that's where he's going to be at this evening. But we are going to spend some time tonight talking about one of my favorite times of year, and that is college football. Wait, no, it's not college football season. It's one of my favorite times of the year, but my favorite time of the year is the springtime. We got the spawn. Today's topic is going to be spring bass fishing in the spawn. We're going to talk about why big bass are more aggressive, more accessible for fishermen like you and I, and how to catch those bigger pre-spawn females to try to go out and catch your personal best largemouth, smallmouth, or spotted bass. With that being said, I'd like to quick shout out to the sponsors of the channel. As always, Malone's Marine, Border Sporting Goods, Shimano, G Loomis, Solar Bat, Hannah Sublet, Insurance Broker, and Picasso. They are ones that are able to bring us to you so you guys can see your favorite content or mediocre content, what have you. I widened my view of the camera a little bit today. Still have to do some work. Still tweaking on this thing, guys. Notice the chair back here, still broken, just so you know. Larry Slack in the house. What's up, my brother? But we're talking about bass fishing today in the spawn area. Now, I know we have viewers from all over the United States and some people out of the country, which is awesome. Thank you guys for joining. I do have some quick updates for the old YouTube channel. And I am just crazy. It blows my mind the amount of subscribers that have subscribed to my channel in the last 2 months. It's been crazy. And to say that it's way above what I thought it would ever be is, that's a definite understatement. In the last 2 months, I've had almost 700 subscribers on my channel, which is absolutely crazy. I'm right now at 5,682 subscribers. Have had 195,000 views this month, which is crazy. And I have a video of me catching that rainbow trout at Greenbow that is absolutely going uber viral for me. For me, it is. We're talking about 100, and I think it's 100. Let me make sure here that I am telling you the truth. The last 28 days for that video, it's like 175,000 views, which is crazy. Mark Hickey in the house. What's up, my brother? All these posts that you've been posting about this Florida boat, don't forget about me, man. I want to go Florida fishing. Let me know. I'm off all summer. You go, I want to go. That being said, again, we're talking about the bass spawn this evening. Now, I will tell you, I have some of the hardest times understanding when bass spawn, where to go, and where to look. So I've been doing an absurd amount of research over the last 2 years. And I find myself about this time of year trying to do a spawn show anyway, because we're getting close, right? We're getting ready to, myself and Dusty are getting ready to go on what I'm dubbing the trip. And that is going, obviously, we talked about it. I'm not going to beat you guys to death, but I'm going to be traveling to 5 different states to catch bass in 5 different states that will kind of add more states to the 50 states that I want to do. All right, I'm holding you to it. That's easy. Simple. Done. So I'm out in these states, but we're looking to get down into Lake Fork around, I think it's April 18th or it's 19th or 20th. So I'm thinking the spawn is going to be in full swing down there. If not, they might be transitioning into post spawn. But some of the biggest things for me to understand was with the bass spawn is what triggers bass to spawn in certain areas, because not all areas, not all bass spawn in the same time, just due to the equator and how the sun warms up the water. And one of the biggest things is that I can talk about is that it happens all over the United States and all different times. We'll talk about that in just a second. Dino in the house. What's up, my man? Thanks for joining. So if you think about the southern states, someone like Florida, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, typically from the research that I've done, spawning typically starts as early as January and goes into March. So if that is 100% true, then we will be fishing post-spawn conditions at Fork in mid-April. Now, do I feel like that there's going to be some stragglers along the way? Sure, there are. You're going to have some that are like eager. I feel like the younger fish are going to go up and try to spawn quicker, and the bigger fish are probably going to hang out, and because they've been through it a lot and they know what's going on, so it creates a little bit of they're smarter about it, obviously, right? So the reason that they start spawning down there earlier, obviously, is to do with the warmer climates. So it leads to an earlier spawn. But one of the things that I've looked at, and the research that I've done to try to become a better spawn time bass fisherman, is what triggers bass to start spawning. And from my research, you'll see a lot of people talking about moons and like the second full moon during the rut, or during it's kind of like the rut of bucks or elks or whatever. And there is some truth to that. Tyler Williams, what's up, my man? But I think one of the biggest soul things that you have to worry about when it comes to fishing the spawn, or finding and patterning those fish when they're going to spawn in your area, is looking for that water temperature. And normally it's around that 58 to 70 degree water temperature. Now, that's not necessarily across the whole United States and the country, obviously. I've been to Lake St. Clair in May and in June, and there's been fish. I mean, I saw fish on beds as early as like 55 degrees, or even lower than that, 50 degrees of Lake St. Clair. Things are different. It has a lot to do with the length of the days, has a lot to do with the moon phase, and it has, in my opinion, more to do with the water temperature. Now, the thing about the water temperature is that it fluctuates a lot of times during the spring. You may think, hey, I'm going to go out here and catch some fish in the spawn, and then we have some cold rain that kind of shuts them off a little bit. It kind of cools that water temperature down a little bit, and it has to, I think the biggest thing is the stabilization of water temperature. If you can actually get that water temperature to stay in that 60 to 65 degree range for a few days, even a week or so, they're definitely going to be moving up. Now, if we look into like the mid region, we'll call it the mid region, that's somewhere like across from like Tennessee, Missouri, Oklahoma, even like Kentucky. I feel like that you could probably even get there. Maybe you could say, Ohio, Southern Ohio, where we're at, is going to probably fall into those mid region states. And according to the research that I've done, March to May is the opportune spawning times. Again, longer days. We have water temperatures that are warming up. It's equalizing the temperature. It's getting a lot more, they're feeling better. You got to figure that those fish have been super cold all winter and pretty lethargic. They do eat all the time. Obviously, they have to eat every day to survive. So they're eating all the time, but they're going to be more picky and things like that. But when you start getting that water temperature warming up, they just look to eat a lot of stuff, because they know, especially those big females that, could potentially break your personal best record, are going to be looking to know that they're going to be on the bed for several weeks, probably at least a week or a week and a half, 2 weeks sometimes. So they eat and they feed up and they gorge themselves just to have enough sustenance to survive that. Obviously, they eat during the spawn too, but trying to, they try to build up and get as much body weight as they can before they go, nest. And if you are looking for, one of the things about the mid region here is that I think shallow protected areas come into play a lot sooner than most people think. Because if you think about the sun beating down on shallower water, it's going to warm that stuff up. And if we have some wind and stuff to start pushing those currents around a little bit to figure out, get that warmer water into that deeper water, flowing into that deeper water, it's going to start pushing those fish towards their spawning haunts. So it's really tough to pattern them around here because I've seen fish, spawn in 10 foot of water, and I've seen fish spawn on a foot, or I've seen fish with their dorsal fin out of the water, which is, obviously crazy, but spawn all over the place. So the water temperatures are going to vary. And then if you look at the northern states, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, like those are like super high upper echelon, Wisconsin, places like that. Spawn occurs May to June, sometimes even into July in colder lakes, especially if it's really deep. Like if you're up in like the UP of Michigan, somewhere like Burt Mallet or something, those lakes are huge. They're really deep and they are really cold up until a certain time of year. They start warming up, fish start moving up. Burt Mallet is it's Burt and Mallet. It's two different lakes in the UP of Michigan, two of the craziest places I've ever been. Because the water is so clear and fish spawn in anywhere from 18 to 25 foot of water, which is crazy. But matter of fact, the BFL I was fishing at, there were people taking golf balls that were colored golf balls and dropping them down when they were fogging to see bedfish, which I thought was crazy. So they could see those golf balls and they were dropping their baits down there on them and catching those fish, which is, absolutely crazy. Let's see. Late March in southern Tennessee, man. Thanks for the heads up there. And again, so the later spawn in those northern areas are due to the delayed water temperature getting up there. Like I said, I think that's one of the biggest features that you have to look for when you're talking about spawning with bass is the fact that, I think that me personally, again, I'm not a wildlife biologist by any means, but I've done a lot of research in the last few years because I want to become a better fisherman in the pre-spawn. And I made a pretty controversial post on my own Facebook page the other day that you can't be against live scope and have ever bed fished intentionally in your life. And I still kind of like feel like that's a hill I'll die on. But I also I'm tired of the polarizing area of bass fishing. So when I made that post, and it's still up on my Facebook page, so it's not that I'm ashamed of it, but I'm just adding to the negativity. But one of the things that I try not to do anymore is catch fish off the beds. I have been definitely, I've been guilty of doing it less times for largemouth because in this area they're really tough to see. Normally the water's dingy. They spawn a little deeper. Spawn during the time where we have a lot of rain in our area, muddies up the water. You can't really see them. But I have definitely been guilty of going to like Lake St. Clair or someplace up like that, up in Erie, and they're absolutely astronomically easy to catch, especially smallmouth. If you can catch one on a bed, I can guarantee you, without a shadow of a doubt, you can catch that fish. As easy as it is dropping like a pink Ned worm in their bed, if you leave it there long enough, they eventually will eat the bait. Or at least pick it up out of their mouth and try to spit it out of there. And with that time, you can catch it. And again, it's just not for me anymore. So I don't enjoy bed fishing. And we always try to plan our trips around things where I'm not going to be bed fishing because, I do see the detriment that live scope could have on the fishery, but I also do see that bed fishing has just as not much, if not more, of an impact on spawns than anything else. So, if the fish aren't spawning and procreating, they're not going to populate the lakes. And there's 1,000 things that go into that, right? There's improper harvest. We're really, as fishermen now, are diving into that, looking at how much fish do we keep. Personally, I told you guys last week, I have, I've been in a situation where I haven't kept a largemouth, smallmouth, or spotted bass to eat or to give away to eat in a better part of 20 years. I bet I haven't done that for a long time. And, there's a lot of research now saying that you need to do a lot more harvesting and stuff. And I'm doing more research. I'm educating myself to become a better bass fisherman, but I'm also wanting to become a better conservationist, right? I want to be able to ensure that we can, I want to catch a 10-pound bass around here. I want you guys to catch a 10-pound bass. Like, that's the deal. But like spawning, my goal is here, like for this show, is to talk about like pre-spawn. How do we catch those big fish before they get on the bed? What's up, Andy? Appreciate it, man. Guys, Old Man by the Sea Productions here. A buddy of mine that I just met, I guess it was in the fall. I've known about him because I've been following his YouTube channel for a while. He is a local fisherman, fishes Greenbow a lot, places like that, over at Eastland and a few other places. Has a kayak, does some like trout trolling and all kind of stuff. If you're interested in that stuff, go over and check that out. He is a great person, and I enjoy watching his content as well. So, if we think about back to the spawn area here, what do you look for during the spawn? What are things that you as a fisherman should key in on to try to find those fish? Well, obviously, I think the low hanging fruit here for every area, no matter where you're at, when that warm water starts warming up, is going to be shallow, protected water like bays, coves, areas protected from the wind. And you may be thinking, what does it matter about the wind or protection from that stuff? Well, the thing about it is that fish do not like to spawn in turbulent water. Because again, they're laying eggs and the eggs are being fertilized. We all know the circle of life here, but the deal is that they try to find a spot where they think that their young or their fry is going to have the best chance of surviving. But I think the reason that these areas, they kind of congregate to these areas first is the fact that no wind equals warmer water temperatures and a more stabilized water environment. So if you have if you have a 55-degree water area in a lake and you're having a 50-mile-an-hour wind that's 50 degrees that day, it's going to lower the water temperature quite a bit. A lot of times these protected coves have rocks and things on the bottom, which is what we're going to go to and talk about in just a second, which is going to be hard bottoms, gravel, sand, hard clay. They're prime bedding areas for largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass. They look for a place where they can, clean out the males. From what I understand of the spawning process, the males go in and they create the beds, and these spawning females come in and they just, either bounce around from bed to bed or stay in the same bed with the same female or with the same male. But they look for hard bottoms. That's so they can like rub their belly and stuff when they're actually spawning, so they can release those eggs and things, and it makes it easier on them. So gravel, like hard rock bottom, especially if you're talking about smallmouth, or you're looking for chunk rock, boulders, stuff like that. Sand is a great place also. Hard clay again is prime. Looking for shell beds if you're from south of us. Don't have many shell beds here in this area, but places like that where you can see them, and that's one of the biggest dead giveaways up on Lake St. Clair. If you go up and you see a bed for a smallmouth, it could be as big as a truck hood. I mean, absolutely massive. This big, giant white area. Usually they're white because it's all the way buried down to the sand. You will see mollusk and mussel shells in there. And again, that's because those fish are eating those things, or they create a hard bottom. They're just dead giveaways. Yeah, so I mean, I kind of agree with that also. As long as your catch, photo, release, I don't think that's going to hurt it too much as well. I'm right there. I feel the same way as you do on that for sure. So what are some visual cues that you can look for if you're spawning, or if you're looking for spawning fish? Well, again, as I talked about, almost 100% of fish, I think, that do spawning like this create circular beds when and all possible. They're not going in there with a protractor or a compass and be like, yep, it's exactly that round. Like, they're just clearing out the area, getting rid of those nasty, all the mud and muck and stuff, and trying to make clean up house enough to get those females in there and entice them to to lay their eggs and do the whole deal and to have a nice spawn there. That's one of the quickest things that you can figure out is if you catch a bass, even if you're not looking at a bed and you're not bed fishing, and you catch a bass and the bottom half of their tail is almost eaten off and it is blood red like raw, that fish has either been on the bed previously, like within the first day or two, or is on the bed right now. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, if I throw a chatterbait over a bed, is that fish going to come up and eat that thing? Probably not, unless it's on the hunt for some food, right? Maybe there's some bluegill in the area, and those bluegill are pestering that fish, and you bring a chatterbait past that thing, and it may think that it's one of those bluegill and come up there and hammer that thing. I caught almost a 7-pound bass last year in Falls Lake, which would have been 2 weeks ago, and it was it looked like it had been spawning, which was crazy because I caught it in February. I'm not saying that it couldn't have been. We were in North Carolina, but I just don't think it was. But normally the time, that's one of the most visual cues you can find is if you catch a fish in a lake and it has a bloody tail, there could be thousands of bass spawning at that point in time. So maybe you switch up what you're doing at that point if you catch one with a bloody tail. Now let's look at some, techniques for catching these big bass in the spring. And what I mean by big bass is that, obviously the females get bigger than the males. That's a known fact. We all know that. And the bigger the bass that are there, the reason that the best chance to catch a giant bass is catching a big pre-spawn largemouth. So I spoke with Justin, Ohio DNR rep for Southern Ohio. So the best thing we can do for the area is bass fishing is harvest smaller bass. I'm going to start keeping some below the slot limit. And that's the deal. Yeah, I agree with that. So I am on board with that too. I heard, and I haven't been able to clarify this or verify this, not clarify it, but I am going to speak to somebody who can clarify it. I've been told by 100 people, not that many, obviously, probably 15 or 20 people that they put a slot limit on Grayson. Which I think needs to happen. Slot limits. I talked to Jason Kenner about it the other day. We're going to have him on the show, and we're going to have a conversation about that. But how many bass? Like if I go out there, Andy goes out there, JR goes out there, maybe 10 of you guys that are watching go out to Grayson, and we catch 5 bass apiece. So that's 50 bass that we take out of there. Either we eat them, my goal is to donate them to find some elderly people that love eating fish and that can't get out anymore. And I would love to clean them and give them to those people so they can enjoy a nice meal of bass, because my personal favorite fish is not bass. I'm not going to lie to you. I will eat it, but it's just not my favorite. I would much rather have crappie or bluegill, or walleye is my favorite, obviously. But, I'd rather be able to do that. But like 50 bass, even if you've done that every day for months, what's that actually do to the population of the fish? Does that help out? And if it does, how long does it take to make anything happen like that? And Jason seems to think that the deal is that they should be electroshocking these fish and basically netting them and taking them out of there, which I don't know. He brought up a really good point that I never thought about, but I still don't know how to think about it or know what I think about it. He says that if you go out and catch 5 bass a day, you're catching the fish that are capable of being caught. And maybe you drug it by a 5-pounder that's not going to eat. Or maybe you drug it past a 15-incher that's not going to eat. Or maybe you drug it past an 8-incher that's super smart and is not going to eat your lures, especially artificial stuff. So are you doing detriment by keeping the fish that you can catch? Does that hurt? It's not really going to hurt the population, but does it hurt the availability or the ability to catch fish in that pond? And I don't know. I think that's a great idea to look at. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but I'm definitely going to start keeping some fish. I even had an idea to run, if they put a slot limit on Grayson, to run a tournament out there one time for a slot limit tournament where you couldn't keep any bass that was 12 inches or bigger. Or I guess so the slot limit normally is like anything up to 12 to 15. You can't keep anything over 15. So you could keep any fish you wanted to under 12 inches. We'll weigh them. Biggest 5 fish wins. Throw them in a cooler. I'll clean them all, donate them to, someplace like a food pantry or shoot, maybe we'll just get together and have a big honor of the line fish fry somewhere, whatever. We'll do something like that. But I thought that would be a pretty cool idea. It would be a lot to take in, but I'm still kind of looking to see if they implement that slot limit. I hope they do, because there's literally, I know for a fact, last year I went to Grayson myself with just the intent to see how many bass I can catch in Grayson Lake. And I fished from 6 o'clock in the morning or about 5:45, whenever I got daylight enough for me to see. I fished from then until noon. I caught 119 bass. and they were all about this long. They were literally, I was throwing a wacky rig all day. I just went in there to try to catch some fish. I could have cleaned out 100 bass. Obviously, that would have been above the slot limit, but or above the amount I could keep. But I could have caught a bunch of them. But that's the biggest deal. Is like I think that these bigger bass that are in there are getting out foraged by the smaller bass. There's just too much competition. Now, so again, pre-spawn strategies. What we're going to do to try to catch these big females. First and foremost, the biggest target here is to find those feeding bass before they move to the beds. And again, they feed up, they gorge themselves, trying to get as much nourishment as they can because they know the next week or so is going to be a heck on their body, and they are just going to have a hard time being there. And there's really not, they have one thing on their mind, and that's to procreate. And, it kind of is what it is. But some of my favorite baits during the pre-spawn time, one of my favorite baits that gets overlooked a lot is going to be a lipless crankbait. And the lipless crankbait is one of those things that you can throw a lot of different ways. You can yo-yo it. You can reel it pretty fast. You can reel it. The cool thing about a lipless crankbait is that it's one of the biggest deals with forward-facing sonar for me. And love it or hate it, I can see finally how long it actually takes my bait to get to certain parts of the water column. So if I throw this half-ounce rattle trap out there, I'm throwing this Jackall TN60 or TN70 or something out there. I can see how long it takes my bait to get down to a certain depth. And then when I start reeling, as long as I keep it at the same retrieve speed, that bait will stay in that same water column level. So if the fish are suspended at 17 feet, I can figure out how long it takes me to get down there, and I can rip that through those fish and catch a lot of them. So that's one of the biggest things that has taught me with forward-facing sonar is how long it takes baits to get down there. That's another great idea, Brian. I never thought of that. Taking those bass out in stock farm ponds and creeks. That's another great idea too. Matthew Strickland, what's up, my man? Thanks for joining, buddy. Next thing in the pre-spawn for me is going to be a jerkbait. Jerkbait is if the water gets, from really 50 degrees to 50 degrees. 50 degrees in the fall to 50 to 55 degrees in the spring. I'm throwing a jerkbait. They are phenomenal. The new Shimano Zumverno 95 SP could be the greatest jerkbait on the planet. I'm a huge fan of 6th Sense, obviously, or Megabass stuff. And the biggest thing there is that, I don't feel like there's a ton of good collars in other things other than Megabass. They have great collars. I really like those. I really like the Jackall Re-Range 110 as well, but there's a limited number of collars that comes in. And then the Shimano World Minnow, I'll just be the first to tell you I wasn't a huge fan of the World Minnow. I think they just missed the mark just a little bit. And then they started coming out with a Zumverno 95 SP, and it comes in a couple matte collars. It comes in Macchiato, and it comes in Matte Pro Blue, I think, is another pro, or is a matte collar that they have. I just believe that those matte collars do very well, especially in very clear water. Those are really good baits if you're looking to get in there. And last but not least, spinner baits in the fall, in the pre-spawn area is another good way to cover a lot of water and catch some big giant bass. Now, again, I make my own spinner baits, so I'll have a lot of them coming up for sale here soon, as well as the Firebird, which is known as the new Little Squeak buzzbait. I've just about got those things dialed in, and we're ready to rock and roll with some production on there. I've got about 20 orders to fill here in the next few days. So once I get these things dialed in and sent out to some people that can test them out for me, once I start seeing people catch fish on them, you guys will have the ability to buy some of those. I sold a lot of them the other day at the Wayne Fishing Show, which I know they'll all work. They're the exact same replica as Greg Drown, so it's definitely going to work. Last thing for lures, again, a really high percentage lure for pre-spawn is going to be a big jig, something like Black and Blue. We're going to have a lot more posts coming out here soon about the new Berkley baits. Berkley come out with the Stank Bug and the Crud Crawl, and I think they're going to be outstanding for jig trailers. The Stank Bug is going to look phenomenal on the back of a big jig. I really like it a lot. What's up, Fred? How you doing, buddy? Lipless crankbait, #1 spring lure. It's a good one to have, man. Still testing and tuning on that thing. I'm hoping to have a couple done and ready to rock and roll before I go to Lake Fork. I have 7 of them on the bench making them right now. Biggest deal is that I'm having a hard time getting them weighted correctly all the time. Every bit of wood is different. I don't want to have a one-off bait every time. If I had to weight every bait, they would cost way more than anybody could ever pay for them, because I would have 4 or 5 hours per lure in them, and it would just be astronomical. So I'm looking for a way to get them weighted, decently. If I can get them all a slow sink, and then you can add lead wire to them or whatever, that's the biggest deal. Speaking of which, I got some pretty good news the other day. Andy, who's just watching, gave me this pack of chunk crawls because he knows how much I love them at the show the other day when I saw him. But got some good news for y'all. I talked to Shimano rep the other day and said, hey, man, I said, I looked and saw that the flick shakes are no longer on my order rider. What's going on with this? Is Jack-O-Lite getting rid of all their soft plastics? The chunk crawl's gone. The flick shake is gone. And he told me the flick shake is being redesigned, but he told me, and I don't know how true this is, I think it's pretty true because he would be the guy to know, that they only discontinued the 4-inch models. I don't know. I haven't seen many 3.5 inches. I know that they're not available on my rider, but it could be the fact that they don't have any in stock. So there is hope. There is hope. Now, areas. Where do you look for in pre-spawn? Staging points, like points, ledges, first drop off near spawning flats. One of my favorite places to find is a big spawning flat that's like 5 foot or less of water. Bigger the area as possible. And if you can find a big ledge within, 100 to 200 yards of that spawning flat, you can absolutely wreck bass on those ledges, because they stage there, and then they can just like inflate their swim bladder to go up and down to catch those fish and, gorge themselves to make it easier for them to understand or to like get, sustenance and get nutrients, which is, I think it's my number one spot for pre-spawn fishing is finding a big area that I think would be a spawning flat and looking for steep banks or ledges or first drop-offs near that. The closer you can get to those spawning flats for those sharp sheer drop-offs, they are amazing places to fish. And there could be fish anywhere from 1 foot to 20 foot, wherever you're at there, how much ever, because they could be traveling anywhere in that water column, because they don't have to go left or right, really. They just have to go up or down. So they can just, use that. They can also use that really sharp ledge or sharp bank as a way to ambush fish. They can drive them up on the bank and eat them. So it's a really good spot to check it out. Now, if you think about during the spawn, so we talked about pre-spawn. You're going to be looking for places where they're going to be staging. You're going to be looking like points, ledges, first drop-offs, ledges near spawning flats. Now, during the spawn, how are we going to do it? Well, both males guarding the nest and big females waiting nearby are able to be caught during the spawn. Now, if they're locked onto a bed, you're probably going to have a very slim chance to catching those fish unless you can physically see them and pitch at them over and over and over. Now, I'm talking about largemouth here. If you talk about smallmouth, they're totally different species. Like I'm telling you, if you catch a fish, smallmouth on a bed, there is a 100% chance you're going to catch that fish if you spend enough time there. They're just absolutely predatory during that time, and they hate things in their bed. So they will either eat it or try to spit it out. But I guarantee you, 99.95% of the time, you're going to catch a smallmouth. The only way that the only smallmouth that I've never caught on a bed that I didn't see, that I saw, was probably the biggest smallmouth I've ever seen in my entire life. It was spawning in 19 foot of water at Lake St. Clair. I didn't know fish spawned that deep there. I had no clue. We were just out roaming around looking for fish that weren't on the beds. I told you guys that we get tired of, we just kind of got rid of fishing on the bed. It just doesn't do anything for us anymore. It's just, it's literally like shooting fish in a barrel when it comes to smallmouth. and I don't like dealing with them. There's just so many times where I've caught a fish either intentionally or accidentally off of the bed, and they've had hooks and stuff in their mouth and their face, and people break them off and they go right back down in there and they're going to eat again. Like it's one thing it's taught me is that I don't think fish feels pain the way you and I do or any other mammals, because there's no way. I caught a smallmouth last year that had 2 Ned rigs on both sides, one on each side of its lip, and had a Carolina rig in the back of its throat. Three lures. I got all of them out and turned it loose, but they, I don't think that they would be just continually eating or moving if they were sore and stuff like that. But again, you're going to have a better chance to catch a smallmouth. I've personally never seen a spawning spotted bass ever in my life that I know of. But the males that are guarding the nest are going to be the quickest to bite. If you can see one, you can throw it over there. Normally, if you put it in the bed for just a few minutes and you can get them to look at it, most of the time the males will eat it. And I've seen people in tournaments and things, and I've seen people do it where if they catch that male, they'll put that male in the live well, and they'll just pick at that spawning female, because they don't have that competition of that male going at that bait, because again, the male is going to be more aggressive and it's going to be more apt to clean the stuff out of the nest, because that's what they're there for, basically, up to a certain point. Water temps do bass go from winter mode to pre-spawn mode and from pre-spawn to spawn? So I think the ideal temperature to start looking for fish moving up into spawn from pre-spawn is going to be that 60-ish, 58 to 62-ish water temperature. And I think that fish, when it hits that 45 to 48 degree water temperature, are going to start moving into those pre-spawn haunts. And it's going to be, in my opinion, I think the spawn happens in about 3 weeks. You have about and this is not totally for every fish. I'm just talking about like one fish. If you take one fish and you look at their spawn cycle, I think it lasts like maybe 2 weeks of pre-spawn, at a most 2 weeks of spawn, and then maybe a week or a week and a half of post-spawn, and then they're back to the summer habits and looking at that. But normally I think like the first couple weeks before it gets to that 58 to 62 degree water temperature is going what I consider to be pre-spawn. And even 55, just depends on how warm the water temperature is. Guys, muddy water warms up faster than clear water. That's due to the sediment in the water, mud and things. And when the sun UV rays beat down on those sediment material, then it heats up. Similar to sand. If you're on a beach and you're walking across a sandy beach, it gets really, really hot because there's some surface area there that's just getting pounded with UV rays. So if the UV rays can penetrate that water better, then it just goes towards the bottom of the lake and then eventually dissipates. But if there's sediment like silt and mud in that water, it's going to warm up quicker, which is then going to cause them to go into pre-spawn a little quicker, but you just can't see them on the bed. Some of my favorite soft plastics and other things when they're on the bed or when they're spawning. Lizards are great. Nobody uses lizards anymore. A Zoom lizard, one of the best baits on the planet for the spawn. Anything that looks like something that's detrimental to the health of the fry and the eggs and the larvae and stuff in the nest, good to check it out. Creature baits, stick worms, e.g., i.e. Cincos, generals, whatever you want to call them. They're great baits for the spawn. One of my favorite spawning baits, and again, bed fishing. If I was going to bed fish, which I haven't done in multiple years, but if I was going to, a white Zoom speed crawl Texas rig, absolutely, for some ungodly reason, will get bit like 75% of the time if you're pitching in a big largemouth bed. I don't know what it is about it, but it is a good bait. Again, sight fishing when you're looking for fish. Now, I do think there's a difference between bed fishing and fishing for roaming fish. I went to Grayson last year in end of May, and they were roaming from bed to bed. They were just doing this pre-spawn weird pattern, and I absolutely wrecked them. I think I had 17 pounds of my best 5 out there on a jackal chunk crawl. You guys probably saw the video, but it was an epic day. They weren't locked on the beds. They may not even been spawning yet. I think they were, but they were cruising, and I could see them cruising, sight fishing. And one of the biggest things that you're going to want to have with sight fishing, and that is going to be some quality eyewear. Now, obviously, you guys know that we're affiliated with Solar Bat sunglasses here, so I enjoy wearing Solar Bat sunglasses. They do have great sales all the time. They're great sunglasses. You don't have to take my word for it. You know, go fishing with me one day. I'll let you use any pair I got. I really like them. They make really good fishing glasses that are not just for fishing. They're for, you know, pretty much anything. They got shooting glasses. They have technology glasses. They even have forward-facing sonar glasses now that take the glare off your screen. But having a good pair of polarized sunglasses makes all the difference in the world. And another thing about it is the higher that you can get yourself away from the surface of the water, the better off it's going to be for you to see fish that are spawning. Now, I will tell you that there are different lenses and different lens collars when it comes to Solar Bat and any other polarized glasses on the planet, and not all are created equal, right? So if you get like high vis yellow and you're looking at things, it's probably not going to be the same as like getting Mossback from Solar Bat, where you can it actually like it intensifies greens and things, so you can see grass and you can see largemouth and you can see fish. So those things, if I'm fishing during the spawn and I'm sight fishing, you know, Mossback is a great lens that I use all the time. I also use the it is the Mirror Blue, Ice Blue. I like it because it's darker. It knocks out a lot of the ambient light around, and I can see farther deeper into the water. So one thing that you're definitely going to need is a good pair of polarized sunglasses. And again, even if you're looking for fish cruising, that is going to be an absolute game changer if you find an epic, you know, good pair of or, you know, any kind of polarized sunglasses. But in our case, obviously, we like to promote Solar Bat because that's what we love and believe in here. And then when you look at the post spawn, so these fish have already went up and they've spawned and they've, you know, backed back off a little bit, and they're going back into their normal routine, going into the summer habits and all the things that are hot water or warm water, you know. So these big spawning females, it takes a while for them to lay their eggs and all that stuff, and it takes them a while to actually recuperate. You know, some of these fish are like near death when they come off of the beds of these things. So it's really crazy, and that's another reason that I don't like to go in there and disturb them, because there's enough. They're going through enough right now to really shock them, going in there and catching them off the bed. So you can still catch some big females. They're not going to be as big, obviously, because the fish are going to be bigger in pre-spawn because they're going to be full of eggs, and we're talking about the spawning females here. Now, most you probably already know this, but female or males do not get as big as females in the end of life stages. You're not going to catch a 10-pound male bass, I don't think. I don't know what the biggest male bass ever caught is, but you're not going to catch a 10-pound male. The big giants that you're looking for those PBs are going to be a female. When you get into that post spawn, you're looking at that 70 to 75 degree water temperature. This is where top water lures early in the morning shine. Swim baits, big swim baits, and one of my favorite things to throw in the summertime is a wacky rig Senko. I also will throw a Texas rigged worm or a creature bait or a crawl like a jackal chunk crawl, or I'm really looking forward to trying those Berkley stank bugs and the crud crawl. So I'm trying to get, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I will throw. And in the summertime, you know, you have to have a lot of options. You know, you might throw a wacky rig one day and absolutely smash them, go the next day and they not touch it, right? You have to have a lot of stuff. But the biggest thing is about the strategy of catching bass and post spawn is to stay focused and focus on deeper water adjacent to spawning flats and shady areas as the water warms up. So they're going to be moving back out again to those steeper banks, those first drop offs, deeper areas in there. You should be looking, you know, 20 to 25 foot, depending on where you're at. If you're talking about like Del Hollow, which is the craziest place on the planet, I caught fish 85 foot there one time with forward-facing sonar. Not kidding you. We caught a whole limit in 85 foot of water. That is astronomically crazy to me. All the pressure that they have to be under in 85 foot of water. but they were down there and they were eating. We caught a whole limit. We had like 16 pounds, which is not giant for Dale Hollow, but it was crazy that we were catching fish in 85 foot of water. But, big crankbait, something like a 5-6XD. I really like that a lot. This is also another one of those times where that lipless crankbait can shine because you can throw it in deeper water. Big jig, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce jig. Get down there and in those places where you see like creek channels, or I was looking at Fork there the other day. I'm trying to figure out a game plan to try to go out and catch some absolute giant bass. And at Fork, they have pond dams and like I was doing a lot of research about that pond. I guess when they were building the lake, they built these ponds, like hundreds of them around the lake, filled them up, and then started putting these F1 or Florida strain bass in those ponds, built the lake, and then either let the water rise up above those ponds or busted the dams in those ponds and let the fish out into the lake, which I thought was pretty daggone cool. Places like that are awesome. Anything that you can find that's different out in 20, 25 foot of water, like a hump or a stump or a rock, awesome places to target post-spawn females. Andrew 6, what's up, my man? Some gear recommendations. There's so many, right? So like if you think about a crankbait, you're going to be looking for something like a moderate action rod for crankbaits. Big crankbaits like a 5-6XD. I'm throwing that on an IMX 906C CBR crankbait rod. It's a 6 power rod. Really, it's a 7 foot 6 inch crankbait rod. Love it for that. Bigger, like 6, 7, 8 inch soft sided swim baits. I use the same rod. Some things like jigs and stuff, either a medium heavy or a heavy rod. My favorite jig rod on the planet is a Interex Plus. So it's a G Loomis Interex Plus 894C JWR, which is a jig worm rod. I really like the 893C JWR, which is a Interex rod as well. And there's just so many good rods out there for that. And if you're wanting something that's a little cheaper, but a little bit, that has a, less of a warranty, the Poison Adrena 172 heavy is a great rod for like 3/8 ounce jigs. If you are looking for something to throw like a spinnerbait on, the Poison Adrena 173 medium heavy is absolutely one of my favorite rods on the planet to throw a spinnerbait on. My jerkbait rod is going to be a Poison Adrena 1611 medium plus. Absolutely phenomenal for that. Smaller Texas rigs, smaller jigs. If you want to throw a wacky rig on a bait caster, you can do that as well. I'm right now looking to get my hands on a new it's a Shimano Outlier, which is a big glide bait, big bait rod that's going to be shipping here soon. I think they start shipping in March. Looking to get my hands on that. And they did make a Tranx, I think it's a 300 though, which sucks, on the not the Metanium, it is the, yep, lost it. I'll come back into it in a second. It's on a new frame, the Bantam. That's what I was picking up what I was putting down there. The Bantam frame, 300 Tranx, gonna be crazy. Jared, you're not lying, man. That's why I have like 9 or 10 of them. I wish they made more of them. Actually, I can't wait to get my hands on the Adrena Beasts. They are phenomenal. I fished with JR's. He's got one. Really crazy that they can pack that much stuff into a rod, and they're not cheap, guys. They're $359, right? So they're up there, right? I'm not saying that they're not, but they are great rods. Fluorocarbon going to be my favorite deals for a lot of stuff. Finesse presentation, I'm going to be looking for braid with a leader on it. Normally, if you're talking about spinning rod, I'm going to have like 12 to 15 pound braid. Normally, I'm going to be throwing usually Super Slick V2 braid from Power Pro down to like an 8-pound leader from Sunline FC Sniper. I just ordered, 3,600 yards of FC Sniper the other day. Actually, I ordered them today. They should be in here in the next few days here, which I'm excited for. You're not wrong, man. Yeah, so the X Prides are great too. You're right. I mean, so we've talked about it 100 times, and this is something that I don't like to share a lot. Is that if Shimano had a better warranty, I would fish strictly Poison Adrenas. I think they're that good. I've not had the opportunity to fish a Poison Ultima just for the simple fact that they're $899. I hear that they are an absolute game changer, totally different. I have a hard time believing they can be that much better than a Poison Adrena. But if they had a better warranty on them, I would have a boat full of Adrenas and call it a day. There's so many good rods in that stuff there. I really like them. They're super light. That carbon handle that they have is awesome. The CI4 reel seat is really good. Really like the guides. It has the Spiralex core technology, which is basically like the Spiralex that you used to see on like Zodius and stuff, but it's on the inside of the rod, kind of like an armored chassis as opposed to an armored outside edge of your rod, which I think it makes a lot of difference. I just love the way they are. They're super, super sensitive. I love them. Yeah, Corey, man. I was thinking about you the other day, and it was in a good way, but not in a good way. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Is I know you do a ton of ice fishing. I don't know. I can't say that I'm not jealous. I'm jealous to see you out there fishing because normally it's cold enough here we can't fish. We don't get ice. But the reason I was thinking about you that my buddy who has taken me walleye fishing a ton. His name's Aaron Dix. He sent me a message over the weekend. He is a guide on Lake Erie, obviously. Like I said, he took us out and catches walleye all the time with us, and he has a charter called Get Hook Charters. He sent me an email or sent me a message on Messenger the other day that like of this headline of people falling through the ice on Lake Erie, and that was him. It was him and his buddy and a bunch of other people. They were out like I don't know how far on Lake Erie, but the ice was super thin, and they had a four-wheeler out there. And the four-wheeler had like an Active Target 2 set up on it and everything. And they were I guess they were in an ice shack, and the freaking four-wheeler and him and his buddy went through the ice into the ice. And he said that he got himself pulled back up out of the ice fairly quickly, but his buddy in his ice suit, it was like it had him like pinned underneath the ice where his head and body was out of that hole, but he couldn't drag him back to the other side because all the ice around them was super thin. And luckily there was an airboat there really closely rescuing somebody else already and pulled them to safety. So he did lose the four-wheeler and the Active Target 2 stuff, but that stuff can be replaced. But, be careful out there, man. I know you do. You have a ton of, you do a lot of conservation, talking about people being on thin ice and stuff. But again, when he sent me that, I'm glad that he made it out. But again, I was thinking of you guys out there, especially as much ice fishing as you do too. So it can happen to anybody, which is crazy. So with that being said, we're about that 50-minute mark. To kind of recap what we're talking about here with some closing thoughts. Understand spawn timing. Find out when the bass in your area go to bedding areas and use the right lures and techniques. Now, that's very easy to say, right? Think about it. Understand spawn timing, identify bedding areas, use the right lures and techniques. If you did all that, you're going to be successful 100% of the time. So that's what we're looking to do right there as bass fishing, especially in the spawn area, pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, is to be successful, right? And that pre-spawn time, if you want an absolute opportunity to catch an absolute giant bass, that pre-spawn area is going to be it. So, and guys, it doesn't happen forever. Like it's weeks, if that. You hear all the old timers say when the dogwoods are blooming, the bass are bedding. And sometimes I believe that to be true, and sometimes I don't. It just depends on the weather. You see a lot of people talking about Easter lilies. Easter lilies are blooming, the bass are bedding. And again, that's just kind of like just a different spot that you can go check on, take a look at it. I am constantly looking at water temperatures on wherever I can look at, Department of Natural Resources websites. If I'm looking at Army Corps of Engineer lakes, I'm looking there. I'm looking for when that water temperature gets in that 55-degree range. From 55 to 65, I'm going to be looking for an absolute swamp donkey. So with that being said, guys, we're getting close to that springtime. So get out there and on the water this spring and try to put these strategies to test. And if you guys find out some better ideas, let me know. I'm all about trying to learn new things and trying to become a better bass fisherman. That's why I started this channel to start with. One, to build a community full of like-minded people, and two, to become a better bass fisherman myself. I am no pro. I'd claim nothing to be a pro. I promise you that. I like to go out and fish. I catch some fish. I win some tournaments, but I also get my rear end smoked in tournaments too. It's just the way it is. Everybody has their day, but I want to become the best bass fisherman I can. I think KVD summed it up when he said the moment that he thinks he's going to stop learning about fishing will be the day that he stops fishing. And I kind of agree with that too. I think that it's you versus Mother Nature all the time. And no matter what, you just have to get out there and try to catch them, man. It's like, it doesn't matter what kind of technology you're using, what kind of rods you're using, what kind of baits you're using. My thing is, if you're going to catch fish, or if you're at least out on the water, like there's been days where I've been out there, not caught a single fish and had an excellent day. Andy, appreciate you stopping by, buddy. Always fun. We'll see each other in the water soon. They did tomorrow. Tomorrow they're stocking trout in Greenbow. So if you're wanting to catch yourself a rainbow trout, I think Andy told me they're stocking those tomorrow. Browns on Thursday. So you know what I'm going to be doing this weekend? It's Bisty's birthday on Saturday. But on Sunday, if the weather is nice, I'm going to be out the Greenbow throwing a big giant glide bait and trying to catch an absolute cold water giant. I'm going to be running out of cold water to catch a cold water giant here soon. But Greenbow has been a fickle biddy. I've caught fish every time I've been out there. I've not went out there and not caught a single fish. I've caught a bass every time that I've went, including this last time. You guys saw that on the Radio Silent video. Awesome time, but I can't wait to get back out there this weekend. It's going to be good. Can't wait till the water warms up. Can't wait to go on this Triple Dusty and bring you guys day by day with us, which is going to be an amazing deal. So till next time, guys, we're about that 1 hour mark. So until next time, you guys know what to do. Get out there and lean on them. We'll see you next time on Another Line.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of On Another Line Live. We truly appreciate your support. And we couldn't do it without all the amazing folks at home watching week after week. A big thank you goes out to our sponsors, who help make this show possible. Malone's Marine, Borders Sporting Goods, Solar Bat Sunglasses, Picasso Lures, Shimano, and Columbia Sportswear. Their partnership allows us to keep bringing you the content you love. We'll see you next time on Another Line. Until then, get out there and lean on them.